afternoon, Rotarians. Well, I'm glad Jonathan is having a good afternoon. Is anyone else having a good afternoon? There we go. All right, thank y'all for joining us today. No Emil, and Ray, do you mind doing double duty?
Sure.
All right.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather today. We just ask you would bless this food, the hands that prepared it. Help it to nourish our bodies so that we might serve others, as our logo and our motto says that we're at a service above self. So help us to go out into this community and all over the world and serve others that might need it. Father, we ask all these things in your Son's precious name. Amen.
Join us in our pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you may be seated. Emily, you can pay for Gray's lunch. He took care of it for you. 50 cents each? Yeah, 50 cents each.
All right, Rotarians, what does this money go to do? Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. I greatly appreciate that. John, this is a great opportunity to put you on the spot. Well, I'm glad. And that way, that means you're Johnny on the spot. So if you'll just come on up and introduce your speaker.
I thought
That was all.
you would ask me to serve on some committee or something. Well, I don't really know if this introduction is necessary, since I think half the club already knows our speaker today, but it's my honor today to have as my guest Mr. Phillip Liston. Phillip is the president of the Greenville Health Authority. He's a native of Greenville. He spent most of his career as an educator, public servant, and advocate for children and families in South Carolina. He is retired from that career in 2018, but in 2017 he was appointed by the governor to serve on the Greenville Health Authority Board of Directors. And he was elected chairman of the Greenville Health Authority Board of Directors in 2019, and finally he became president of the Greenville Health Authority in 2021. Phillip is a graduate of Wofford College with a master's degree from Winthrop. He's an avid tree farmer and conservationist. Phillip and his wife Elaine currently reside in northern Greenville County. And as a side note, Phillip's uncle, Jim, was the general manager of the large CPW back in the 60s. And can I tell him this one too? I can tell him that? Sure. He is a close personal friend of the Murdochs of in a nice way, the nice ones, not the ones that are in jail right now. So, anyway, please help me welcome my friend Phillip Liston.
We'll coin the phrase and charge them some money.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, can y'all just hold that? Okay. All right. It's my distinct honor and privilege to serve as the president of Greenville Health Authority, certainly of which Mr. John Young is trustee as well as being a Rotarian, so that makes him one of my bosses. So when he said, hey, what are the chances you can come down and speak to the Rotary Club? I said, better than 50-50. I'm a native of Greenville County, graduate of Wofford College. I'll come back to Wofford in just a minute. It plays an important part of my life. We spent a lot of years in Hampton County, growing up, and as a young adult, and everybody, I was going to mention in my notes that everybody knows that Hampton, South Carolina, if you're familiar with that, is famous because of the Watermelon Festival, among other things. I was really excited to research to see about the happy bugs, and I thought, what a, just like a lot of ideas, a great simple idea to show how to better the world, and service above self, all of that I'm glad to be a part of.
My story is not done, but my story has been quite remarkable. I haven't been someone who's knew at 18 exactly what the path was going to be, but I've tried to say, well, take me where you can use me, and I'll do my best where I am. So it has been quite a journey, and I'm enjoying it and doing my best with every day I'm given. My story, a little bit, some of this you're going to say, could this be real? That's what made it fun recollecting. There's some serious lessons I want to mention, but a lot of them from some fun things I did when I was here in Lawrence as a younger person. The day after I graduated from Wade Hampton High School, the one in Hampton, there is another, Wade Hampton. My parents moved here to Lawrence in June of 1979. My father, Dr. John Liston, and my mom, Frida, moved here to work in Lawrence District 55. They both made lifelong friends and loved every day of living and working here for about 9 years. And we attended the Lawrence Methodist Church. My older brother, Riley, Dr. Liston, he now serves as Superintendent of Education in Spartanburg District 4. He had just finished Clemson University when we moved here. I'll come back to him too. I'll touch back on brother. He's important to my story. I attended Newberry College my first year, but quickly found myself wanting to attend Wofford, where my dad and granddad had graduated. Sometimes a pivotal moment comes along and you don't realize until you're older how fortunate you were. But I want to declare today that I am certainly aware now. It didn't take me this long to figure it out. But I decided again in the 1980 that I wanted to go to Wofford. Well, I made my application, didn't get any response at all. So I decided I just want to go back to school anyway. No problem. My father said, y'all be able to finish this sentence. My father said, no problem. Jake, just make sure you have a job. So I raised myself down to Lawrence Glass Works. We were going to pay $7 an hour, unheard of, $7 an hour to work up in the glass room, picking up the hot pieces of glass. I would have sworn 130-degree temperature. $7 an hour, more than I could. Who needs college? Who needs Wofford? I lasted one day. One day, all of a sudden, Wofford looked like a much more viable option after all. One Sunday after church, Mr. Dwight Patterson, that name is familiar out here. He approached me after church and he said he had heard I was interested in attending Wofford College, and that he would be glad to write me a letter of recommendation. Again, as a 19-year-old naive kid, I had no idea the magnitude of having Mr. Patterson with his stature, and he was the chairman of the board at Wofford College. I had no clue. But I have the copy of the letter today, and this was a pivotal point in my life. Written from Mr. Patterson, May 1, 1980. Written to Charles Gray from Lawrence, Director of Admissions. Dear Charles, I'm writing in the interest of Mr. Phillip Liston of Lawrence, who's interested in transferring to Wofford as a member of the sophomore class in September 1980. He's presently enrolled in Newberry College, and I understand he has satisfactory grades. He might have fudged on that just a little bit. He's a member of First United Methodist Church Lawrence and is a regular attendant. Since his moving to Lawrence with his family, I have been impressed with his excellent conduct and his interest in sports. His father is superintendent of Lawrence District 55 schools. I heartily recommend Phillip Liston as the type of student who would fit into the Wofford student body and make a fine addition. Sincerely, Dwight F. Patterson. Can anybody predict what do you think happened to my application? Well, of course, the skies parted. I get my letter of acceptance. I loved every moment that I spent on the campus. And it wasn't long before I realized what an unexpected blessing that was. It's such a pivotal point in my life, and I've tried when I've had the opportunity to give somebody else a helping hand or an encouraging word or recommendation. Some of my best life lessons were learned right here in Lawrence from an adventure with my brother Raleigh. I told you I would come back to him. Older brother, like Robert and Raymond on the show. He was always Robert, 2 years older. He decided around 1982, he wanted to accept a paper route. He was married and teaching in Clinton, married with the first child on the way. And this again is about 1982. He decides he wants to make some extra income. He goes to see my parents. I'm there the weekend, and he pitches the idea to him, and they say, "You're crazy. You need to be with your family." Being the loyal brother that I was, I said, "Mom and Dad, if you won't help him, I'll help him. I'll come home and do the paper route on the weekends." And I did. He's never forgotten that I supported that decision, and I haven't let him forget it either. So first one, always be loyal. Second, be punctual, be on time. And again, all these are serious lessons or values, but this paper route, what I'm telling you is true. I had a lot of fun remembering about this and the fact that we were willing to do this for him. Be punctual, be on time. If I was going to get the papers loaded in his car and delivered on time, I had to be downtown at the square in Lawrence at 3 a.m. If I missed that mark, everything else was going to be futile. So I learned to be on time, be punctual. The third one, have a plan and then act decisively. I even went to the point of making a little cassette tape. Nobody knows about cassette tapes anymore, but made a cassette tape of every stop on the route, who lived in which house, where to turn. That's such a good plan. If rain was in the forecast, wrap those papers in plastic, because if I didn't and it rained, everything was fueled. The phone would surely ring, and I would get to run the route again. So certainly have a plan and take decisive and timely actions, whatever the task is. Fourth one, and I still kick myself for doing this, advocate for the company mission, but also for yourself and your belief in executing the task. Be willing to hold others accountable for the task they are responsible for, and know your own role. My brother and I were delivering papers. You know what Doublebrook subdivision is? We were delivering the papers in 5 inches of snow in his car. Got to the last incline going down the hill. I said, "Brother, if we go down here, I don't believe we're going to make it out." "Oh yeah, we're going to be out." Make it through there, start up the hill, the big incline, car stops. Suddenly, before I realize it, he's behind the wheel steering. I'm standing, this 5 inches of snow, I'm standing behind pushing the car with the snow spitting out of the tires in my face. And I quickly realized that should have been him back there. And I asked him, "Why are you driving? You should be back there pushing." So I'm reminded ever since, know your role. Be accountable for yourself, but know the role that others have and hold them to that. Fifth, broken promises have consequences. Do what you agreed to do. Don't look for shortcuts or the lazy way out. And don't make excuses. On the route, we had one customer on Farley Avenue who requested that we get out of the car, put her paper up on the porch. We agreed to do that. Well, invariably, if I just ride along, just flipped it out the window and landed in her yard, she certainly called the Greenville News. I was back out there delivering that paper on her front door. So if you make a promise, keep it, whether it's difficult or not. The sixth one, the last one from our paper route adventure right here. This is too good to make up. Be prepared for the unexpected and have the resourcefulness and patience to figure out the next step. The last night that I ever did the paper route, 3 a.m. in the morning, my mom and I did it. My wife has asked me since then, where was your brother? I said, that is a great question to this day. But Mom and I were doing that. Got about halfway through the route, and every time I went to make a right turn, the horn blast without ceasing. So you can just imagine going through Lawrence, and every time you make a right turn, the horn, there is no stopping. We tried everything. 3 a.m., you're a little bit ill, a little bit grouchy. So we said, hey, we'll work it out. Decided as much as possible just to make left turns. You got to visualize that. And then where you have to get out and walk and deliver them. But in the end, the bigger lesson is be resourceful when adversity hits. Because it always does. I don't have to mark it on that. All of us deal with adversity. One of my father's favorite sayings from his coaching days was, good luck often occurs when preparation meets with opportunity. And what followed next was a great example of what happened in my life. As I reached the end of a career in education, I began to hear a call to offer myself for public service. I watched my father volunteer for the Recreation Commission, anything. He was a builder, an encourager, and I said, you know, the meter's running, it's time for me to get involved. So I randomly picked up the phone and called my local representative, who I didn't know well, and said, I'd like to meet with you. I think I'd like to be on the forestry board, because we grow pine trees in the Low State in Colleton County, close to Hampton. He suggested, well, why don't you serve on the Greenville Health Authority, or it was GHS, Greenville Health System at the time. I had no idea that that had been a little bit contentious at the time. And I said, sure, I'll run. And my winning was such a long shot, I didn't even tell my parents that I was running yet to run for an election within the local delegation. This was and I thought the person I was running against there's no way, but I'll see it through, see what happens. And that night, with only my loyal brother Riley sitting there with me, I was elected to a 3-year term on the board with an 11-10 vote. And that's when the preparation met with opportunity. After election of the board, I went to my parents, showed them my new trustee badge. Had to bring it right here. Live in northern Greenville County, Blue Ridge, Mountain View as we call it. You can imagine how proud I was. They didn't even know I'd applied. I went to see them the night of the election. My brother called and said, Philip's got some big news. And went in and showed them, maybe the next day, the badge I had. And I said, oh boy, my father's going to say, wow, boy, you made it. You're the seat downtown Greenville, boy from northern Greenville County. He said, and I quote, your knowledge will be your badge, and don't make this about yourself and you will be fine. I was really hoping for a attaboy, good job, and I was so disappointed. I just wanted to say, man, you pulled off something that was really improbable. And I knew that he was proud, and I knew as most of the time he was probably right. And it wasn't long before I decided to immerse myself in the lease and contribution agreement, Act 432, that governs our activities. Within a year, I mentioned this to Brian and Mr. Harlan, I mentioned within a year, I decided to follow my new passion and quit my full-time paying job, making more than I'd ever made, to take a volunteer position on the GHA board. I made that decision. It was all so new and exciting. My initial assignment was to the Grants Committee. I'll tell you a little bit about that. It distributes, which Mr. Young is a member of the Grants Committee, distributes $4 million of health-related grants to the community and $2 million to Greenville County and the 6 municipalities of Greenville. I quickly found myself at home and learning to advocate for different projects with a different perspective than some of the other people around the table. I knew I'd found the right place to serve. The following year, I was selected as the vice chair of the board, as John mentioned. And the following year, I was elected as the chairman. Matter of fact, the way it happened, I didn't offer myself for it. Somebody called me on the board and said, "We've decided we want you to be the chairman." That's the way it worked. I said, "I'll have to think about it." And I said, "Okay, I thought about it. Let's go." My father passed away the year before I was elected chair, but I was ecstatic to share this news with my mother. The board meeting with me presiding was on Channel 4 on the news that night in the corporate office, and took a still frame of that. When I got home, a freeze frame on the WYFF, and there I am sitting in the chair. I'm sitting next to it's a who's who of the upstate, and I'm expecting my mom to be duly impressed. And Mr. Barton's known my mom all his life, so he'll appreciate this. I showed her, and I still have the picture on my phone. I showed her the picture of me at the chair in the meeting, and all the people were there, and the Prisma CEO, and I showed it to her. She looked at it a minute, and she finally, I was just waiting for her to say, "Oh, man, my baby has done it. He's done it. Look at that." She looked at me, and she said, "Why were you slouching in your chair in that picture?" A dose of humility, really quickly. She's immensely proud, my biggest fan. She would type papers for me when I come home from Walford. I'd say, "Mom, I'm up against it. I got a paper due." She said, "No problem. When's it due?" I'd say, "Tomorrow morning." That paper got done. So she and my dad both were great, and my mom continues to be a great support person, but such a dose of humility. After a year and a half of serving as the GHA board chair, I was flattered to be offered the position of serving as the president of the Greenville Health Authority, a position I've held the last 2.5 years. I contract out for support services that we use, such as our legal counsel, public relations firms, auditors, grant support services. Some of the main tasks, and this one, number one, and I'd say this, and to the group, it's a different role than as the chairperson sets the strategy. The president's executing what the board wants to do. So number one, I said, make sure the board of trustees has timely and accurate information to make the best decisions possible, including for the grant committee, the lease committee, the governance committees, and for full board meetings. So I try to get them up-to-date information so they can make the strongest decisions. Second, I advocate to the Greenville legislative delegation when we have GHA trustee nominations for election to the board. And in the 4 years I've been either the board chair or the president, we've had 100% of trustees approved. And Brian, I can tell you that is, I'm so proud of that. The healthcare part of it is pretty straightforward. Politics can be an adventure. So to get all of our people, number one, recruiting great candidates is half of the battle. But to get all of them seated on the GHA board, I'm immensely honored to work with them. Third, my job is to make sure all the functions of the lease work properly with Prisma Health. So it's kind of think about all the things like the way the lease is set up, with reimbursements. Some things Prisma pays directly on our behalf. We have monies, again, grant money, making sure that everything flows in the procurements, all the payments, that everything, try to stay ahead of the game. And a lot of that's based on the personal relationships, not only with our board, but with everybody from the Prisma CEO to their accounting folks, to their legal folks. It's an exercise in relationships, not so different than education. And finally, the biggest part of my task is to assure we are accessible as a governmental body to the public, and that all of our processes and meetings, from grants to lease oversight, are transparent to the public. That is the difference. Prisma is a private nonprofit. We are a governmental. A lot of times if people have a concern, they may or may not contact somebody at Prisma, but they know they can find me. And I'll encourage you John, it wouldn't be much of a present if I didn't mention, I'd invite you to check out our website, www.greenvillehealthauthority.org. Again, greenvillehealthauthority.org. There's a ton of information there. My email is listed there under contacts. If you have specific questions about what the health authority does, email me. I'm highly responsive, try to be, and but again, I would encourage you to check out our website. If you're thinking, what is the Greenville Health Authority? Again, to restate, we're the governmental legacy board that was once known as GHS, or the Greenville Health System. In 2016, the Greenville Health System Board decided to contract with what is now known as Prisma Health Upstate to execute all of the day-to-day operations for the service areas of Greenville, Lawrence, Oconee, and Pickens. The Greenville Health Authority still has the responsibility to assure adequate health care in the service areas according to the language in Act 432 of 2018. So even though we're not in charge of day-to-day operations, we're still responsible to make sure that the care is adequate. The Health Authority continues to maintain ownership of the assets in Greenville County on behalf of the taxpayers. Oversight of the lease agreement is our primary function, along with the administration of the $6 million grant dollars. It's important to note today that our lease is with Prisma Health Upstate and not the Prisma Midlands. That's one of the biggest things in Greenville that we kind of get peppered with is, why aren't y'all more involved with the Midlands operations in Sumter? And the straightforward answer is because our lease is with Prisma Health Upstate, and that service area again is Greenville, Lawrence, Pickens, Oconee. That's who our lease is with. Not that we are not interested in the Midlands and Sumter, but we don't have any oversight role of those assets. In Lawrence and Oconee, there are similar agreements in which the local citizens have retained ownership of the actual physical assets, and Prisma Health Upstate has leased those assets and provides daily operations of clinical care via a lease that's pretty similar to what we have in Greenville. It's an oversimplified way of looking at it is a landlord-tenant relationship. It's more of a real estate primarily arrangement, but with the caveat, the oversight of the health. Get the question a lot of times. So why are there representatives? If Lawrence owns its own assets, Oconee does, and they have their own lease with Prisma Health, why are representatives, Mr. Young, and Prisma Health Upstate, and their service areas included, and as I mentioned, still include Lawrence, Oconee, Pickens, Greenville. Therefore, it was determined by the South Carolina legislature that the GHA board would have a perpetual voice and vote from the surrounding counties in determining if care is adequate, in addition to the oversight that the local boards have with their oversight of the leases they hold with Prisma Health Upstate. And I know that's a lot, but again, I would encourage you to take 5 minutes if you're looking to wind down at the end of the day sometime. GreenvilleHealthAuthority.org. There's a ton of information that's really helpful. I appreciate your time listening about this. Again, my email address is on the website. I'd love to hear from you, specific questions. I want to applaud the work of the Lawrence Rotary Club. Greatly appreciate the chance to be with you today. And let's all keep trying to make the world a better place by putting service before self. Thank you.
Thank you, Phillip. Appreciate you, John, you getting up and presenting Phillip and inviting him to come. Appreciate that. At one point, I was John's boss, so I can kind of relate to the relationship. I was your boss at one point, right? That's right. It's a unique relationship, we understand. Phillip, we also have our speaker sign a book. So we'll get you to sign this, and we donate to a local elementary school. So appreciate you being willing to do that. Don't forget about backpack tomorrow at 9:15 if you can help. If you're not sure, just put the reminder on your phone, and if you got time, run over there and help. Anything else for the club? All right, we'll stand. We'll do our 4-way test and our motto.